In this video, I'm going to explain why creative thinking will often lead you to profitable sports betting models. My name's MGCovers. Greatly appreciate you guys tuning in. We're going to dive right into this. As you know, my premise of how I wager, I create models. I'm a model guy, which people in the industry is labeled bottom up. And you're building a model from the bottom. The alternative to that would be playing via line movement, which is what they call top down. Some people call it originating. And one of the best pieces of advice I can give you when building models is to think creative and think outside the box. And what I mean by that, if you think like everybody else and think of quote conventional stats when you're building models, more times than not, that will not lead to an edge. But if you think in a weird way opposite of what the majority of people think or the majority of way people build models, that will often lead to something creative and often lead to something that gives you an actual edge when building models. And let's dive into it and give you an example. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, I just talked about this earlier. What you're looking at is the soccer model, the new model we created here. And year to date with this model, it's 46 and 46, basically 50% up 12.21 units, and we're grading one play as one unit. And you divide that by 108, that gives us an ROI of 11%. Now, if you slide over here to this side, what I did was this was MLS and Brazil Series A, because the reason I broke it down was we tracked the soccer wagers late in the season for Bundesliga Series A, English Premier League, and in a traditional wagering season. I didn't actually wager these, tracking it via the model. We wouldn't have played that late. So I wanted to see how the model had performed in its sort of peak season, which means after you have enough data early in the season via the model, that's generally when you'll get the most out of your model. And of course, late, more times than not, the model will decline or lose its edge a little bit. Not always, but majority of the time. So to make sure everybody's understanding this, so the MLS and Brazil Series A went 25 and 30, up 7.5 units. All right. So this is a great point. And a lot of times what happens when you think conventionally. All right. Brief background with soccer. Home teams win roughly 40 to 45%. Some of these leagues like MLS and the Brazil Series, the home team will win higher, closer to 50%, sometimes 47, 48%. The draw line will win anywhere from 25 to 30%. Same deal with the away side of 25 to 30%. So here was what I thought. This is what I conceived in my head. I thought, all right, I'm going to go take all of the away teams when the model indicated an away team was a play and see what would happen if we played that away team on the draw line. Now, my thought was, okay, sometimes we're playing a favorite on the away side. Sometimes we're playing a dog. But I know on the draw line, we're going to get, if you know anything about soccer, the draw line's anywhere from, on the low end, plus 200, plus 225, all the way up to, plus 300 and sometimes more than that. So I thought, wow, we would only need to hit roughly 30% of those to be profitable. And so I got real excited when I tested that this morning. And so let me get to the top. So if you look right here, what I did was if a team was away, I just tracked it, what it would have been like, what that line would have been like on the draw line. Now, if it was a loss, I just put -1 here. So you can see the first two loss, another loss, -1. We hit one here at plus 2.29. We keep tracking it. We hit another one, losing a good bit, and we continue our way down to the end. There's a few more that hit, and I actually thought this might be profitable. And these results, look at that skid there, went like 0 and 10. Hit one, was negative minus 8.71 units playing the away teams via the model on the draw line. So what I thought in theory would work actually did not work. Again, that's another reason why when you come up with a concept that you think will work, you have to test it. It's like anything else. And that's why it's important to keep a model, keep a tracker, because then it's very easy to go back and test what you thought would work or would not work. And what's interesting, I went back and said, well, what would the model be if I just played the away teams, meaning we didn't play any home teams and we just played the away teams? Y'all, this model went 13 and 13. It hit 50% and was up 7.5 units. So I might look at actually tweaking this again. Not saying we're going to play exclusively away teams, because again, this is a relatively small sample size. We have, just a little bit more than 50 games total. But what's interesting about that from the away side, I would have thought that playing the away teams on the draw line would be more profitable than exclusively just playing the away teams. A couple things this confirms: this model is very, very sharp. Another reason we know that is because the away side only wins anywhere from 25 to 30%, yet this model has got it all the way up to 50%. So if you follow me for a long time, you've heard the term statistical properties. Those are facts about the sport. That does not mean that you can't create a model that goes against that, so to speak, right? Away teams here via the model, probably not long term, it wouldn't hit 50%, but it's hitting well above the statistical property that away sides win somewhere between 25 and 30%. Now let's dive in and look at another example from baseball, which you guys are familiar with, this new totals model. Now, the totals model now is 28 and 20, up 6 units. That's roughly 50%. But what's interesting is we're averaging playing a totals line of 8.04. The mean, the average number of runs scored in a baseball game right now is 8.6. So we're playing well below the mean. And if you're good at math, conventional wisdom would say you're not going to be profitable because everything's going to regress to the mean, but that's not been the case. We have this model now hitting at 58%. Again, relatively small sample size, so we'll continue to track this. But again, that's another thing I learned from Bob McCune. I've mentioned this in a couple podcasts, and often he went against conventional wisdom, where a lot of times when you see a really high total, this is true for all sports, most people will tend to think, wow, that's a really high total, I'm going to play the under. As well as when you see a very low under, you're thinking, hey, I'm going to probably play the over here. But in reality, not all the time, but he basically mentioned that what you might want to do is try to create a model where you're playing into that. On a really low total, play the under; really high total, play the over, because it goes against, quote, conventional wisdom. Now let's dive back into Major League Baseball. Back in 2023, this was the model that I created, had a ton of success with it. I played all money line dogs at plus 120 or greater. I guess that was, back in 2023, 2 years ago. Now, conventional wisdom would tell you this would not be profitable. Why? Underdogs in baseball, the statistical property of baseball, they only hit 40% of the time. Favorites in NHL and MLB win 60% of the time. Underdogs win right around 40%. That'll vary sometimes each year. Sometimes it goes down to 38% for dogs. Sometimes it'll be up 42, but averages right around 40%. So conventional wisdom would say if you played money line dogs, all money line dogs, you're not going to be profitable because the win percentage will be extremely low. We finished that 2023 season 89 and 81, up plus 47.24 units. Again, grading one play as 1 unit, playing all dogs at plus 120 or greater. So we're hitting 52%. So we hit 12% above the statistical property norm of dogs, which is 40%. So again, going back to the premise of this video, always think creative. And I'll mention this, there might be some of you that are very smart, have a basic understanding of models. There might be something that, quote, that I teach that you sort of go against and build a model in a different way, and it could be profitable. So the big takeaway from this is I want you guys to always think creative, think outside the box. If you conceive an idea or a concept that you say to yourself, I wonder if this would work, it is worth your time and effort to test that concept. Same deal with college basketball. If you remember, probably, I can't remember when I created this model. This was really early in my career. I was struggling to create a profitable college basketball model. And I noticed these teams that play good defense were winning at a high percentage. I said, well, let me just try this. I know this won't work, but I'll take offensive stats out of the model and just use defensive stats. Boom, that model was profitable, made me a ton of money over the years. Extremely, extremely profitable model simply by removing offensive stats and just playing defensive stats. And I was very apprehensive that it would work, but it actually did. And we'll close out this video showing you another example. Those of you that know, Eric is our resident UFC capper. He has a very, very, very good model with UFC. And you look over here, this was from last year, 2024. His average odds that he averaged on the plays that he played was minus 141. That is extremely high. Conventional wisdom would tell you that's extremely hard to profit because that minus 141 converts into about a 58%, 59% win ratio just to break even. So in order for him to profit, well, let me show this page. So all we did was convert the minus 141 into a win percentage. So in order to break even, he has to hit at least 59%. And that is very difficult to do long term. But then we go back to the model itself, the tracker, he went 123 and 59 last year, hit 67.58%. So it's a very, very profitable model. Again, conventional wisdom would say it would be impossible to be profitable, laying average of minus 141 odds, but he did it. And we'll look at this year, same deal. He's averaging a little bit more this year, minus 146. And he is 68 and 29, hitting 70% year to date. So ahead of last year's pace as well. So again, what looks like it might not work in this business, or regardless of anything that I teach, any concept you conceive, always track it, test it, because more times than not, if you're thinking against the quote general public of what feels like wouldn't work, I would encourage you to track that, and it would be worth your time to invest into tracking it to see if it will be profitable. One thing to mention before we leave, this Major League Baseball totals model, if you are a client or if you become a client, you have access to it. You get access to this entire model from A to Z. I think we have like 6 coaching videos on it. I show you what stats we use. I don't really do this. We did it for this particular model because it was new. But again, you get access to the entire thing, what site I use to pull the stats from, how the lines are calculated, et cetera, et cetera. To join, it's only $50 a month. So you get a ton of value by investing very little. Link to join in the description of this video. Appreciate you guys watching. Talk to y'all soon. Peace.